All right, guys, so let's continue on with our stretching program, our case study example. So we're still working on our case study example with Sarah. We knew that her arms fell forward and she had excessive forward lean. We've already designed her dynamic program. And again, for the requirements for the assignments in this class, I won't make you use pictures or descriptions for that dynamic program. However, for your true stretching program, so for your stretches that are PNF, static, or SMR, we are going to need a picture and description. So for Sarah, these are the stretches that I chose for her. So foam rolling of the calves. Here's my picture and my description. Foam rolling her latissimus dorsi. And foam rolling her IT band. And also foam rolling her quadriceps. Okay, and so for foam rolling, I'm going to keep all of her foam rolling stretches at the same intensity and same speed. So for all of them, I have her slowly rolling, which is about 1 inch every 2 seconds, and then pausing at any tight spots for 30 seconds to 1 minute. So if I scroll back up to my ACSM guidelines, for time for SMR stretches, I'm going to write that here. So 1 inch every 2 to 4 seconds, rolling slowly, and hold on tight spots. Okay, so for each stretch that you design that is going to be SMR, keep the time frame the same. Okay, for every static stretch, keep the time frame the same for this client. Just makes everything easier. We know that Sarah was a younger individual. She was under 55. She was 25, I believe. So for static stretches, according to ACSM guidelines, we're going to do anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds. As I've discussed several times throughout this course, I would like you to do it somewhere between 20 and 30 seconds, just to keep things a little bit longer for clients. So for Sarah, for her static stretches, I just chose 30 seconds for her. So SMR, 1 inch every 2 to 4 seconds. I'm going to roll slowly and hold on my tight spots. So those were my first 4 stretches I had. Then for this client, I also chose Cobra Pose, which is going to focus on her chest and abs. Again, here's my picture, my description of the stretch. And since it is static based, again, I just told you that I picked 30 seconds for this client. I also chose a downward dog stretch for her, which is really going to focus on those hamstrings, calves, and also her shoulders. Remember, the client stated that she was having some tightness in her neck and shoulders at the end of the day. Also, because she is seated for long periods of time, I want to make sure that she's stretching out her hamstrings muscle. And then the client also, I want to make sure she stretches all major muscle groups. Even though her hamstrings weren't one of the tight areas, according to her NASM overhead squat assessment, hamstrings are a major muscle group, so we would want to make sure we stretch those as well. And then I gave her several PNF stretches. So a hip flexor PNF stretch. For PNF, I chose 6 seconds and then a 30-second hold. So the 6-second contraction and 30-second hold. Stability ball chest stretch. That is also going to be PNF. Again, the 6-second contraction followed by the 30-second hold. And then it's just a basic static stability ball relaxation stretch that's going to focus on her neck and back. Okay, so for this client total, I have 1 as her calves, 2 latissimus dorsi, 3 her IT band, 4 her quadricep, 5 cobra pose, 6 is down dog, 7 is hip flexors, 8 is the chest stretch, and then 9 is the stability ball back relaxation stretch. So I gave this client 9 exercises or 9 stretches. I made sure to hit all major muscle groups. So when you're thinking about major muscle groups for clients, think, am I stretching chest, quads, hamstrings? Need some type of back stretch. Am I getting their calves? Okay, maybe throw in a glute stretch If we had a few more stretches to work out with the client, if they didn't have such some areas that were so tight that we needed to focus on, maybe we'll focus on those abductors, give her a butterfly-based stretch. So again, your stretching program, you could have picked 9 totally different stretches for this client, which would have been perfectly fine. For example, instead of picking the foam rolling of the calves, you may pick the toe up against the wall stretch and just keep it static for this client. You may have picked the latissimus dorsi stretch. You may have just picked instead a hanging static latissimus dorsi stretch. Okay. For maybe instead of cobra pose, you picked down dog or a lying figure 4 stretch to stretch the client's glutes, right? So there's a bazillion different stretches that you could have chosen for this client. You just need to make sure that all major muscle groups are stretched. Okay, I also noted here that I'm going to recommend the 1 day a week of a beginner yoga class for this client. Okay, so there's my picture of the stretch, my description of the stretch, and then time frame is also listed. So now that I have my flexibility program basically designed, I can go back up here and fill this in. So my dynamic program, that was a total of 6 minutes. For PNF, I'm going to keep all my times the same for all my PNF stretches. I believe I gave the client 2. So a 6-second contraction followed by a 30-second hold. For my static stretches, I chose 30 seconds hold. And SMR, I'm going to do 1 inch every 2 to 4 seconds. I'm going to roll slowly and hold on the tight spots. Okay. My type of stretches, I included all major stretching types because that was part of the assignment as well. But SMR, PNF, static, dynamic, and then I also chose the 1 day a week of yoga class for this client, so I'll list that as well in the type. My volume of stretching, I'm going to do 60 seconds with each stretch for each side. So for example, if I did my static stretches, 30-second hold, I'm going to make sure that if I'm stretching a single side, that I stretch it twice to make sure I get 60 seconds in total, right? For pattern, remember we always want the client warmed up before exercise we want to warm the client up with dynamic exercises before we go into a stretching program. So a dynamic warm-up followed by the stretching program. Okay. Another example you could have written would be a dynamic warm-up followed by her group exercise class that she's taking, and then finishing with her stretching program. And then the progression, that's going to be filled out for you because methods are unknown. Okay. So as you scroll down, your very last thing that you'll fill out in your program is the actual stretching program, what 1 week will look like for the client. And here I just basically want you to list what days you want the client to do the workout or the stretching program on. So for this client, I chose, since we're having her do 3 days a week, I'd like her to stretch on Monday, to stretch on Thursday, and then hopefully get some type of yoga class, that beginner yoga class, in maybe on the weekend. So either a Saturday, I could have also listed it as a Sunday. Okay. But remember, we don't want the client only stretching on Monday and Tuesday and then leaving the rest of the week for no stretching, right? We don't want those muscles to get really tight again. The idea is to be consistent with our stretching program because consistency is key in any exercise-based program. Okay. And then that is your stretching program for this client. Okay, so the toughest part for you guys probably more than likely is going to be actually deciding which stretches you want to include and making sure that they are going to cover all major muscle groups. Okay, easy way to do that is to go over the stretches and the stretching handouts that I've covered through each module and use some of the stretches that we've done. We have a static stretch, a PNF stretch, a yoga-based stretch, or an SMR stretch for every major muscle group. Okay, so I'm not being super picky about where you get the picture from or where you get the description from, as long as the description is correct and you change your time and make sure that the time is correct. Okay. I don't need you to cite your sources on that. I'm not going to be super picky about that. I know we're kind of dealing in the online environment right now, so I'm not going to be picky about that. So you can get them anywhere if you want to take your own pictures, if you want to cut and paste from the textbook areas that or the handouts that I've given. I am perfectly fine with that. So feel free to use whatever resources you have. I have a couple resources listed online for you as well that you may choose to use. But remember, picture, description of the exercise, and include the time frame that you're going to have the client do the exercise. So if you have any questions, as always, just make sure you contact me, and I'm more than happy to help. And good luck on your case study this week.